Hello everyone, this is Mr. Mola for the 5.5 puzzle time. The joke for this one is, why don't centipedes play soccer? That's going to be a good question, Centipedes with all those legs, I imagine, they're probably pretty good at kicking the ball pretty fast if you ever tried to catch one. So I think they'd be great soccer players. So we're going to go through a couple of these, and I already have them written down on another slide. So we're going to go through A, B, E, and then K and L. So a little bit of everything here on this one. So if you look at A, so this is just a normal problem, trying to get X, or to solve for X. So remember, you could graph these. I'm going to do them algebraically. So I have a negative X, so I'm going to add X to each side. So that cancels, so 2X and X make 3X, and 3X equals negative 6. Divide both sides by 3. So negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Okay. Then if I look at B, same thing. I'm going to subtract 4x from each side. And then you'll notice something weird happens. I have a positive 4x and a negative 4x. Those end up canceling. So I'm just left with my numbers. And my numbers are negative 5 equals 1. That is not true. Negative 5 does not equal 1. So we're left with a no solution here. All right, and then we skip down to E. So E, we have some distributing to do first. So negative 2 times 6 is a negative 12. Negative 2 times a negative x is a positive 2x. And then same thing, let's get my x's together. So I'm going to subtract 2x from each side. Subtract 2x from each side. And then kind of the same thing as the other one. My x's disappear because 2x minus 2x is 0. But this time my numbers are negative 12 equals negative 12. That is true. Negative 12 does equal negative 12. They're the same number, so we have all real numbers or infinitely many solutions. Okay, and then we get into some absolute value ones. So remember, with these, we're going to do one problem just normal, just get rid of the absolute value bars, and solve for it like we normally would. So I have x minus 3 equals 2x minus 3. So I'm going to subtract x from each side. So I'm left with negative 3. 2x minus x is just x, equals x minus 3. And then I'm going to add 3 to each side. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So for my first problem, I'm left with x equals 0. And then remember, for our second problem, we have to multiply one whole side by negative 1. So if I end up multiplying one whole side by negative 1, let's just say I'll do the left side this time. Doesn't matter which side. That's negative 1 times x, negative 1 times a negative 3. So now my new left side should be negative x plus 3. I didn't do anything to the right side, so I'm going to keep it as 2x minus 3. And then same thing, I'm going to add x to each side. So now that I added x to each side, I'm left with 3x over here. And then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And now that it's a positive 3, 3 plus 3 is 6 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So then my two answers for that one are 0 and 2. And then the last one here is a little different just because the 3 is outside the parentheses, or outside the absolute value bars. That kind of changes things a little bit. So for the first problem, I'm going to write it without the absolute value bars. So x minus 6, and then I'm going to distribute the 3 equals 3x. So subtract x from each side, subtract x from each side. So I'm left with negative 6 equals 2x. Divide each side by 2, divide each side by 2. So I'm left with negative 3 equals x. And then same thing, the other problem, I need to make one whole side negative. Since this one has that distributing, I usually don't like to mess with that. So I'm just going to make this left side negative. So same thing, I'm going to distribute a negative 1 to everything on the left side. So negative 1 times x, negative 1x, negative 1 times 6 is now a positive 6. And like I said, I didn't want to mess with that right side because it's weird with that distributing. So I'm just going to leave it as a 3x. And then same thing, I'm going to add x to each side. So now I have 6 equals x plus 3x is 4x. Then I'm going to divide by 4. and I can simplify 6 over 4 as 3 over 2. So then my two answers there are 3 over 2 and negative 3. So if we go back here to the joke, so why don't centipedes play soccer? And the reason they don't play soccer is by the time they get their shoes on, the game has ended, which is probably true because, I mean, they got 100 feet. So, I mean, game that starts at noon, they're probably going to have to get there at like 10 o'clock just to get their shoes on. And then the game's probably over at that point. So, probably a good reason that centipedes don't play soccer.